So this is the Whole Man Academy podcast. My guest today needs no introduction, but we're going to give him an intro anyway. I was coming up with what I could think of best to say, which is a style icon for men around the world. He's been on more front covers than you can count. He also likes cars, dogs, and music. And more importantly, he's also the Whole Man Academy ambassador. David, welcome to the Whole Man Academy podcast. How are you and where are you, sir?
Thank you, sir. That's a very nice introduction. Makes my morning a lot better.
I was up all night writing it.
Yeah, you got my email though. I'm in London, so I've actually been chucked out of my office downstairs. So we're sharing a kind of offices, and my other half's a barrister, so she's got the office today, and I'm upstairs. And away from.
How's it been then with, I'm guessing that you've had an increased, I think the last time we spoke was on Zoom anyway, a while ago, in between our silly messages on WhatsApp, which generally include chickens and dogs and stuff like that. But how's it for you with trying to run, your career, but being stuck at home and being on Zoom all the time, especially when you've got, a little one, and little ones don't generally be quiet?
Very, very true. Yeah, I mean, Anthony, I think you have to adapt. I mean, I suppose in many ways I'm probably in a little bit of a better position because my running businesses and my brand and everything else over the so many years has been done remotely. I mean, I'm never really at home, or never have really been at home. I would always be on 60 to 90 flights a year. So to me, the businesses and everything I do has always sort of been done through laptops, emails, on planes, in hotel rooms. So I guess I was in a better position. It was probably strange for me in the fact that I couldn't go anywhere, if that sounds better. So I was then chucked into something that was alien to me, which is something like a routine. So that was peculiar to me. There were some lovely factors in having a routine, but anything alien someone to people sometimes, it's like if you said someone they're used to a routine and then you give them no routine and they're not sure when they're flying and they're at home, or there's a million projects on the go, it would probably drive them around the bend. But I'm used to that. That was my kind of routine. So it's been strange. It's been lovely. Lockdown one, we were up north with Steph, my partner's mum, and in many ways, I always had I was always thinking of taking a few months off. There were sort of lots of stuff going on. I think I needed a little bit of a rethink, a reboot in some ways. Wanted to spend. I've always spent time with Matilda, and I made sure I was in London for definitely her first year without too much traveling. But there's always, as I call it, fear of missing out, which is terrible, and constant comparisons. So, and you can't get away from that with social media and everything goes. We would like to think we would all switch it off, but we are seeing what other people are doing, where they're going events, work, and everything else. I'm a very competitive person. I constantly have, sort of a little whisper in my ear that you should, be at the front of the crowd, be ahead of the game and everything else. And that's very, very, very hard to switch off. And it's a pain in the arse a lot of the time. It's a motivational thing. It's constantly pushing and pushing and pushing, but it's hard sometimes. So when lockdown one came, we talk about lockdown one now as if it's, the first film and then the second film lockdown two. So when lockdown one came out, pretty much. And there was almost, a relief because no one was doing anything. No one was flying anywhere. No one was working. No one was shooting. We were still continuing. I was still doing as much as I could. I started a lot of other projects. There were a lot of people, unfortunately, in worse position than me that were losing positions and jobs. So I was actually employing people to then start on other projects that I wanted to, that have been in the pipeline for a while. But there was a really lovely feeling of sort of waking up every day with Matilda and going for a walk in the hills and not, literally not having my mobile phone in hand. I could go, right, well, no one's in the office, no
Yeah.
one's going to be contacted.
Switch off.
And yeah, and I actually found it. I was not. We wanted to go up north, but of course, I was a little bit reluctant about. I didn't know how long we were going to be there. And then Steph had to drag me home. Really, I was quite happy walking the dogs and walking Matilda, and because it gave me that time frame and that sort of frame of mind to relax much more.
Yeah,
and I know
get out and.
Exactly. So many men in the same boat as well that I knew were so busy, and they enjoyed lockdown. And they're probably everyone I knew that said they sort of really enjoyed it were all self-employed, were all entrepreneurs that got time to switch off. So
what about from the gym? Because I know I think on one of the questions that we'd sent through to you when we did a bit of Q&A for the Whole Man Academy, you'd said, it gave you a chance to have a rest from the gym, because I'm guessing for, the last 20 years, you've pretty much been at the gym every day, if not twice a day sometimes, especially with a shoot coming up. So what was it like giving your body a break from that?
And it was good. I mean, when we were up north, there was loads of physical work going on. I was sort of taking the dogs for probably good 6-7 miles of strenuous walking, which I do in London, but it was different when we were up in Yorkshire, Lancashire. And there was just a lot of physical work. I think I was talking to you, and I was building fences and felling trees and building, hen coops and nothing. There was basically one shop open, which was Screwfix. So I would go. I had no idea how to make a fence, but there's enough YouTube videos on everything to teach you how to do it. Lovely, to be able to do something physically from the mental side as well. And so that was working. And I didn't do a press up. I didn't do a sit up. I didn't obviously go to a gym. They weren't open for 3 months. Absolutely nothing apart from the physical exertion of the work. So it was. I think I needed to give my body a rest. As you said, for 20 years, I have pretty much been working out. It's something I've always enjoyed, and it's not something I did because of modeling and being in that. It's something I did for myself, of the well-being of myself. I just always have kept healthy. I played a lot of sport, and when I stopped playing sport, I continued in the gym. But again, it then became something with having children and working so much and having that it wasn't almost a pleasure. It was something at 8:30 in the evening that I would have to drag myself to the gym, and I wasn't enjoying it as much. So I think the rest was nice. It was not easy going back. I was so surprised how I lost about 8 kilograms in weight. Just from losing muscle mass. And then stupidly went back into the gym thinking I was pushing, sort of 45 kilograms aside on my bench, and so I'll chuck 25 aside on. And there was a very embarrassing first instance of dropping it down on my chest. couldn't get up, had to roll it down my chest, and so carried on. And just the pain over the next few weeks of starting again was extremely difficult, but almost great to have something to aim for again, to get to my body back to kind of where it was before. It felt much more rested. Everything before, when I was going, there was a little twinge here and there, but I was always feeling. But I felt refreshed, and I think it kind of did me some good. Of course, then I finally got back to making some progress, and I changed my workouts as well, and came back. So I was just getting into it, and then they shut the gyms again for lockdown too. Yeah, so,
just as you got back to it.
Just seeing some decent progress. But I am training more at home now, just kettlebells, press ups, stretching, everything else too, because I suppose with them saying that it's going to be 4 weeks, when before we didn't know how long it was going to be. Mm-hmm. But I suppose, I hope it's 4 weeks. I hope it is the 2nd of December. But I suppose having a time frame in mind is easier for me, I suppose.
I think it helps mentally, doesn't it, to have an end goal, as it were, of like, I can get back to the gym. I was going to ask you because we, on one of the previous podcasts, we interviewed a guy that does a lot of bodybuilding, and he was talking about how, it's when you're really cutting body fat to that extent. And I know you haven't gone to the bodybuilder side of it, but obviously for you, when you've got a shoot coming up and you're going to be, without any clothes on, how difficult was it for you to, or what were the measures you would take to try and make sure that your body is in what you feel is tip-top condition for that one day or how many days of shooting?
So, yeah, I mean, sometimes it can be difficult. I mean, I would always, hopefully, if we knew we had something like light blue shooting or an underwear campaign or something like that, we would always have months in advance. So I'd always sort of keep my body in a condition which mentally to me, I always thought was pretty decent condition.
Yeah.
And then when we had a shoot, I would then start preparing for that. So it'd probably be, you'd probably say 2 months to probably 6 weeks before of much more intensive training. Stripping down eating, sort of less saturated fats and a little bit less carbs, but not much. But I never, the dieting side of, people presume I don't really eat much, which is ludicrous. I'm a 15 stone guy.
I was going to say, I know I've met you. You can't maintain a 6 foot plus figure, etc., without eating a decent amount of food.
No, I mean, the amount I walk, a day with the dogs and have Matilda and work out and train, and I'm constantly on the move. I mean, a trainer that I know, a good friend of mine, he worked out that I need over 4,000 calories a day just to maintain my body. That's just maintaining. That's without putting anything else on. And 4,000 calories sounds like a lot of fun, but actually sometimes it's quite hard. So there's a lot of supplements just to get that 4,000.
Just to bulk up the calories.
So I don't really, I cut a little bit of the saturated fat, which I don't really eat that much anyway. So the diet doesn't change. Like a lot more protein because you're training so much more. The extremities, some guys, of course, bodybuilding is vastly different. You see the guys on Men's Health, and there's a side to me, and I've been very fortunate to do Men's Health covers and Men's Fitness and stuff like that. But when you see some of the guys and those fitness models, the extremities that they go to get that body, I think does set a standard that is not achievable for guys. If I have to, maybe I'm saying that because I've never achieved it, but I do think people ask me about my training and my eating, and I think what I achieve is probably very achievable, or how my body is quite achievable. Though some of them, when people are cutting and then they're they're shooting, they're salt depleting and sort of really dehydrating themselves. Now I have done that. Now I'm not saying I haven't done that, because actually on the last light blue shoot I did do that, and it worked. It felt horrendous, but you pretty much drink. You have to drink a load of water to get all the salt out of your body. You then spend about 2 days not really drinking, like thimblefuls or espresso cups. I was in Italy at the time you can drink coffee because that's dehydrating, and little bits of water. You feel horrendous. You look great. I mean, every bit of, and the fun side was, as soon as that shoot was finished, you've never seen me and sort of eat so much pasta in my life.
That was my next question. Was what did you binge on afterwards?
It's like calamari, just keep bringing it. So yeah, and it's not something I advise people particularly do. I don't think it's particularly really healthy.
Well, you just said that's the thing I was trying to say to people. Look, the fitness models on the front cover of magazine have probably got a great baseline of muscle mass and low body fat maybe, and then they hit it hard in the way that works for them in the last few days, and then you've got great lighting as well. So it's not to say they're not in great shape, but I'm like, look, it's not achievable for many to maintain that, because as you said, it actually ends up being quite painful. So I get it.
Yeah, and you have to forget, like, some of those guys, that's how they make a living. That is what they do on a daily basis. That's not what I do on a daily basis. It's another part of what I do. But yeah, so I always, people were surprised when I say, well, how long? You said, you eat twice a day in the gym. Well, I've very rarely done that, and probably even when I'm training 6 days a week for something, it's an hour a day.
Yeah.
You know, I might go a little bit over, but basically it's an hour. And I always say to people, 45 minutes in, you know, in intensive workout. And I always sort of say that to people because I think you have 45 minutes. If I said, oh, I spend 2 hours in the gym, people would be like, right, well, I haven't got 2 hours. And I would understand that.
Yeah.
But everyone's got 45 minutes. And you know, there's an intensive workout that you can do. And I always say sort of, yeah, that time frame is a good way of, I think, a mindset that, yes, I can achieve that. And of course, people say, well, how much cardio do you do? And they quite enjoy that. I say nothing.
Zero.
I don't do cardio.
Yeah.
Zero. But I, you know, if I showed them that I walk 50 miles a week with a dog, then, and I'm, you know, I don't stop. I drive my other half around the bend, you know, from the time I get up to the time I go to bed, there is no real stopping. There's no sitting on, you know, the sofa for a few hours watching Netflix, or we have a daughter, we have a dog, I have businesses, I'm at the gym, I'm shopping, and, you know, there is, she says to me sometimes, can we just watch a box set just for what? And I'll be like, yeah, and I get like half an hour into it, and I'm like, and I'm off somewhere.
What would she be watching? What would she be watching?
Steph.
Yeah.
I mean, it varies. We have we don't have arguments about sort of. She can go into the depths of things that I do not want to watch, which is Jersey Housewives and. I can't even think of other things she watches. Kind of, there are certain, and I don't even know, and so I haven't even.
It's not your thing.
I mean, there was, you know, yeah, like, you know, what was the one, like, they got, you know, wedding on first date kind of thing. These people that got together,
yeah.
Which I have to admit, during lockdown 1, I got so into. It was ridiculous.
And
I used to say to Steph, "Oh, do you want to put your program on?" And she's like, "Do you want me to put my program on?" And I was like, "Yeah, I better."
Yeah, I'm not fussed, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm fussed, but yeah, I just want to see how John's getting on with his new bride. Yeah, it's pathetic, but yeah, I'm not. You know, I was always Sopranos and Mad Men were my 2 favorite programs. There's been a few, you know, sort of great documentaries. I am quite, you know, I do love a documentary, and I do love World War II documentaries. So I can see why people would, you know, why, especially Steph's like, "Oh my God, are you sure you can watch another Second World War documentary? I swear you watched this one last week."
Have you seen on Netflix? It's World War. I think it's World War in Color or World War II in Color.
World War in Color. Yeah.
I found myself watching that late at night. It was brilliant.
Yeah, and there was the one, I forget his name, of actor. He's a famous director, but he took all the footage from World War I, all the black and white, put it in color, and then because there was no sound, he got people to lip read what all the soldiers are saying, and then cast people that he thought would be their voices, so that you can all hear what they're saying as well, which is an incredible.
It's a good effort.
Watched that on Remembrance Sunday, which was good. So yeah, we have different sort of different viewings. She puts it down to, and this is really quite a good thing for people sometimes. Is I said she's a barrister. She's far cleverer, far more intelligent than you know, kind of I am. And I said, how can you as a barrister watch this? This is awful. And she said, because David, if I'm dealing with, and I'm shizzing family law, if I'm dealing with certain cases and I am hearing things that most people will never hear, will not, you know, a lot of people will not even believe things that are going on in the community with children and parents and everything else. She said, I need to completely switch off. Like, I don't, you know, and she said, that is I'm probably not even paying attention to it, but that is my thing to switch off. I don't have to worry. It's not the news. It's not a documentary to think about. It's something where I am and you know, half an hour, I'm completely just kind of switched off, which is fine. But then, you know, when she's not in court, she still watches them anyway. So I'll argue with that. On an upside, you know, I was speaking to Tej from Dragon's Den yesterday. I was shooting with him, and he was actually saying the amount of incredible ideas, the amount of entrepreneurs that have come from this and said, right, well, we're out of our big corporate jobs. I've now almost been forced, my hand's been forced to now start the company I've always wanted to start. And I think as a nation, and you know, entrepreneurship in Britain, I think that's what we're known for. That's what we you know, the government have always wanted to support. A conservative government have always wanted to support, and we have a conservative government at the moment. So hopefully that you know, sort of that has always worked quite well.
Yeah.
However, you know, I always am worried that during this time that, you know, there's still a lot of people during lockdown. The markets have done very well. They all shot up the other day. You know, we're talking about they didn't do very well in March, of course, but now since the March, they're higher than they were in March. So there's a lot of people at the higher end making a lot of money.
Yeah.
The rich and richer, and there's going to be a lot of the poor that are affected even more.
I was just thinking, it is the divide, isn't it? Is, you know, if people owned gold, if you owned Bitcoin, if you owned a lot of these different assets, then they're going one way, and the average man on the street is losing out. Well, that was one of my next points. Was I would describe you as a entrepreneur. Whereas I wonder, what would you like to be remembered as? Because I know you're invested in several businesses, and obviously with the Whole Man Academy, I know that, you know, business is your thing. It's not as if modeling is your one career, as it were.
No.
Where did that come from?
The business side, the entrepreneur side. You see, I still am a little bit. I suppose I'm a little bit shy of calling myself a businessman or entrepreneur in many, many ways. It came from, I suppose, the working side. I call myself a grafter. I graft. I think it's a bit of an Essex thing. And I say there's a lot of people who have built their own businesses in Essex are entrepreneurs, and I think hopefully we can all say that we didn't have the best education, we didn't go to the best schools, and a lot of people probably left school early, but they've been quite successful, or very successful. My peer group and, you know, when I was at school, have all done very well, but it was because of that. We called it just grafting, just working and working really hard. Like, I don't think anything was given to you, so you work hard to go and get that. And I suppose that was instilled into me from my mum and dad. My dad started companies when he was, I suppose, late 20s. It was his first company. He started with a lot of group. Then he left that and started a few more. And my mum, we worked in the companies as well. So I grew up with a household and that mum and dad were working from 7, 8 in the morning, whilst me and my sister were around, of course. But they were still on the phones. They had to deal with America as part of one of their businesses, and they were still on the phone at, you know, midnight.
Yeah.
And it was part of life. You know, we would sit down at dinner every day, but pretty likely halfway through the phone would go and dad would have to go and take a call, and then that was just part of it. So an example was set by my parents, really, at the end of the day. And then I suppose I kind of fell into, yes, there was the modeling side, and I was very fortunate that went very well. I won't bore people with kind of how that progressed, but pretty much a lot of my first sort of 5 years into modeling was just totally observational, and was seeing how the industry worked. Right. And if I could find a gap, or if I could find, and I didn't really realize this, but I was, you know, I sort of looked at it and thought, well, the female models and the female super earn 5 times the amount the top male model does. We shoot the same campaign. How does this work? And I was fortunate enough to work with Chrissy Turlington and a lot of other, you know, sort of Naomi Campbell and Kate Moss. And I would literally question them. I would ask them, how did you achieve this? How have you got there? How have you, and you know, constantly discuss. And I used their platform. That was it. I just needed sort of one chance, which Dolce & Gabbana Light Blue, which, yes, it was a chance, but we instigated that. By the way, we put ourselves in a position where we needed to be, and then as soon as, you know, that campaign came out, then I pushed the button on, right, this is where we need to go, and set goals, and there was constant goals, and we went from there. And then from when I was in a fortunate position to, you know, sort of being in a very comfortable position with money and investments, and built my brand. Yeah. And I suppose I never really looked at it that I built this brand, and I built the companies that I did to look after me. It didn't seem like entrepreneurship, but actually you then realize that, and someone said, a businessman I still sort of talk to, he said, you know, you've built this, you've built a, you know, this is kind of on your own. You've got agencies, but no one else has done this. Yeah. And then I just started looking into, well, how can I help others, and how can I help, you know, sort of small young brands? and people started approaching me, and I started investing, whilst constantly adapting my brands and my companies. And that's how it kind of developed really into then being called an entrepreneur, which I think is laughable sometimes, because
so if we wound the clock forward, I know you and I are pretty much the same. I think I'm a year older than you, or a touch more than that. But let's say we're sitting together
and look far younger, so which is annoying.
It's just it's just the filter I put on. It's all the special products I use. But if we were sitting 40 years from now on rocking chairs in the Cotswolds with a nice glass of wine, what would you want to be remembered as? Would it be the man of fashion or the man of business, like the entrepreneur, do you think?
That's a good question. I haven't really thought of that. I lost another 40. I don't know, Anton. I suppose the side that gives me most pleasure, in many ways, is kind of not the charity side, because it sounds a bit wanky me saying that, but when you can see something that you can help with. Say we do, I said to you, we've done talks on Whole Man Academy, and a guy has come up to me on the street and said that helped me so much.
Yeah.
That one guy, by saying that, and thank you so much, when we have a little chat for minutes, it feels like you've achieved so much.
Definitely.
And that will go on for sponsoring my old junior schools. And I've just got the report from the junior school of all the examples of all the kids that have done very well and have achieved so much from this scheme. And that does, that you're never, and I never really say what we do with the charities, or because we don't post much about actually what is being achieved half the time, because I'm not doing it for publicity. I'm not doing it, but that from me is something that is quite special.
The impact.
I suppose it is the impact, and but sitting 40 years from, I don't even really care. I know it sounds stupid. I don't really care. I hope someone says, David Gandy, he was a good guy. I'd be happy with that. Whether it was because of what I achieved with charities, what I achieved helping those, or I helped, so I helped build new British brands, but it all started from fashion. I'm that's where it all started. So there is a side, don't get me wrong, when someone goes, how do I, I get millions of messages a week from guys going, how do I become a model like you? And I have to sort of say to them, well, there's a very long story here. And,
sit down.
Yeah. And I won't bore them with it, but modeling was actually a very small part of what we actually achieved. So now, yes, I'm ambassador for lots of brands, but that's what we do. We're constant collaborating. So there's not really the modeling side of things, of how other models work, of castings, of going to different jobs and working with different brands. That ended in 2007. Almost to that point. So that distance, that was a stepping stone to then what we did from there. And then we did, I had the brand with M&S. That was another stepping stone. And in between that, we had books and other businesses. And then you have to realize where you're going from there, which is another 5 years and another 5 years. So I'm constantly sort of setting goals of where I need to be, or where I should be. I always think it's important to set goals. And I can't understand people that don't, because I think game is a game of chess and business is almost a game of chess. And you need to know where that checkmate is going. And that's your ultimate goal. And you constantly have to diversify and move everything to get to that point. But I always say to people, if you don't quite know where your point is, where are you going?
Yeah.
In some way. So those goals change. Actually, those goalposts are always moved, but how you actually get to that position it changes.
That's I think that sums up part with the Whole Man Academy. When we first started it, we didn't know what it was going to be. It was kind of a let's get guys together to talk, and that will be great. And then you realize that at some point there has to be an actual tangible end to it. What is it that you're going to create for guys? How are you going to have more impact? And hence why we're launching the mastermind in January. So if we talked about the Whole Man Academy, we're very lucky to have you as our global ambassador. And I like the word global before, because it sounds even more impressive. But what is it for you, that drew you to the Whole Man Academy, and were happy to kind of put your name towards it? Because I appreciate that that the David Gandy brand doesn't just put his name to anything apart from Batsy Dog's Home as well. We'll come on to that.
Yeah, no, I'm quite specific about where the name goes, frustratingly to lots of brands and people. I think there's always been, I suppose, I've spoken about this when we did the talks at Geese and Hawks, and that was the first time I probably kind of opened up about my mental well-being. As we've discussed, calling it mental health puts sometimes some negative connotations on items. People don't want to talk about it. People like to run away from the mental health element to it. My God, we don't want to talk about this, which is exactly what we don't want people to do. I'm not suffering. I've said before, I've had dark periods. I've definitely haven't suffered as badly as others, but I've had darker times which I suppose you could put down to a very sort of minor element of depression, and where I suppose I'm a little bit different. Where if someone looked at my life and I do, and they say, well, how have you? You're traveling the world. You're being paid a lot of money. You're doing very well.
Yeah. What right have you got to be?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I, looking at a logical point of view, yeah, absolutely none. But that's got nothing to do with it. And we've seen that example with a lot of famous actors, sportsmen, who are all in a very fortunate position. But yes, you do have to take yourself back sometimes to and put things in perspective. But that's a very difficult thing to do sometimes when your brain, your mindset is playing. I always say sort of playing games with you a little bit. And it is, and I would always know I would snap out of these times, and I knew it was, and I knew how to. In the end, how I would get out of them. And I knew one day I would wake up, and it is like a switch. One day you cannot function properly. You cannot think about all these positive items, and then something will change. And sometimes, that switch is something that you didn't want to. I remember I was quite. I was in a low period, and it was going on for a little bit longer. And I can't remember what happened. I had an accident, a car accident, and freakish car accident. The car slid on some mud, and I went and crashed the car. And it clicked me out of this element, this the slightly darker period.
Yeah.
And where most people will probably be depressed if they're watching their car being written off and dragged off of this muddy field in a transporter van, I was laughing and smiling about it the next day for no reason. I have no, but something had clicked inside me, and my brain said that could have been a lot more serious. I think that see how fortunate you are to be where you are when that could have been a lot worse, and it was no one's fault. And
it's like having a little insight.
A little insight, yeah. And I've always taken myself off. Another thing I've sort of done with things as well is I've traveled the world. I'm fortunate to travel the world, but I've continued to. My parents always they educated me through travel, educated me and my sister through travel. So we saw a lot of cultures. We were in South America and Alaska, and this sounds like we had a very privileged upbringing, which I suppose it was, but we weren't particularly very well off when we were. But this is the way that Dad wanted to educate us.
Yeah.
And we still continue to do that. We still continue to do that. And when you take yourself back to seeing how other people live, it's a bit of a reset to your brain to putting things in perspective. There's a couple of other charities, Stole for Soldiers, which is another one of my charities. And when I go and talk to the soldiers, and you are talking to the ex-servicemen and women who are talking to you with sometimes 3 or 2 prosthetic legs, half an arm, and a very disfigured face, and I've never heard them moan once about anything. They just want to achieve, and they just want opportunities. Things like that put things into perspective. Now, a lot of people agree, no, you shouldn't put things in perspective. A lot of people can't see it that way, but it does. It works for me. I'm not saying it works for everyone. So when we go back to Whole Man Academy, it was like, I can talk about these experiences where people probably think I have this, wonderful life and I should never have these dark periods. But when you do, no one can stop them. And it doesn't matter what position you are in life. And if you're incredibly sort of privileged and everything else, they can happen. But a lot of the time it's through chatting and talking. And I just wanted to use my experience to say to guys, this is how I have got through those periods. This is how, you know, this is got through them. These are my experiences, and I'm happy to talk about them. And that's pretty much the Whole Man Academy is what we're saying. You know, talk. Men don't talk. We all know this. This is what we're saying. Men don't talk. Women talk. They chat. They gossip. You know, that they, in some ways they are far superior to men in that aspect.
What about mentorship then? Because I mean, this is, I guess, as you know from the journey of the Whole Man Academy, we went from it, just getting guys together to talk, to understanding that if you can take a guy, and I was thinking of myself when I worked in the city, I was earning quite good money. I had a lovely partner, a great family, a convertible car, all the things I thought were important to me. But fucking hell, I was bored with life, and I felt like I was sleepwalking my way through life. And what I wanted then was a bit more adventure, call it a side adventure or a side hustle or something to kind of get your teeth into. And that's where, with a lot of the guys from the Whole Man Academy now, hence why with the mastermind, you want to take guys that want to live a life of adventure. And like you said, goal setting is one of the big things for me, is saying, what do you want to achieve in life? It hasn't got to be something enormous, but what are the 2 or 3 things? Or maybe it's start a business, maybe it's climb a mountain, maybe it's do something. And often once you've got some focus, that adds, and you take action, because there's a difference between doing all that and then not doing anything at all. I know enough people that have said, I've set goals. Brilliant. What are you doing about it? Well, nothing. I'm busy. So, there's an old saying, knowing and not doing is the same as not knowing. But taking those guys and be able to say, look, for a whole year, we will support you and get together via Zoom these days, but help you create a life that you're really proud of. Which I'm guessing is one of the big things you've done. You've got a new family. We know you've got a new house, and you've got a flourishing career, and you've got a business, and I would say you're living a life of adventure on your terms.
Yeah. And then that, I suppose, from my point of view, I realized that in many ways it was the achieving and the getting there in life that was actually more exciting to me, and I was happier with barriers in the way and constantly having to think outside the box and how you're going to, when you actually achieve something somewhat, it was really weird sometimes. When I actually sometimes get what I want and I achieve what I want, I get that goal, then that next day people are like, why are you not more excited? And I'm like, I don't know. And my grandfather was the same, because sometimes it's worse to get what you actually want than not to get what you want, because you just go, and is
that it?
Yeah, it's like, okay, well, okay, I've achieved that. So what am I doing tomorrow now? Something I learned, sort of years ago, is that so probably why I've got so many projects on the go. And as soon as I finish one, there's another one ticking away in my head about, maybe we could start that. And it's that kind of constant achieving and sort of pushing yourself to be outside your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of people, and I'm not saying everyone is the same, to stay, and it's very difficult sometimes when you have family and have responsibilities, but you're like you in the city, to make that step, to take that step to go, actually, this is not, I'm not happy. It's time to, get out of the rat race.
Yeah.
And, but I always say to guys, you have to, it's then a battle with yourself in some ways, but it's you setting those battles, it's you setting those boundaries of what you want to achieve. And I think we are all in the mindset, and I think lockdown might have helped here, of being in the rat race, that money is the element, that houses and cars, and we can say it's not, but guys, especially in their, masculine, element of achieving, and it's sort of, is, yes, we do compare, and we are in sort of, competition. And men who say that they're not, I actually respect, and they say, no, we're very happy with what we have. And that's great. That's absolutely fantastic. But I know that's kind of like not me.
Yeah.
But it is the adventure of trying to achieve what I want to achieve, rather than sometimes achieving that. You know, this kind of goes for, I think, you know, but we're going to get onto it, cars. But I love restoring the cars, and sometimes the process is, I hate the processing. It's taking so long. It's costing more money, but you're building something in my head. You're achieving something, and then I get the car.
Yeah.
And there's a bit of an anticlimax behind it.
Isn't that like the astronauts? You know, you've gone to space and then you come back, and you're like, you've been building up for years for this big event, and you come back and you're like, what the fuck do I do now?
Yeah, I think there is that element to it, and I really do. And a lot of people I've spoken to, and I know businessmen who have lost their arse. They have made millions, and then they've lost it. And I've asked them why, and they said, but then we made it back again, and we made more, and then we lost it again on another venture, and then they built it again. They said, because that building is what we enjoy. And I think, and it's, you know, sort of that, there's that mindset, which is quite, I don't know if it's a strange thing to have, but I don't think anyone should be embarrassed by saying, you know, I think we're so under such scrutiny to what we say now. We think we should be saying one thing, that and we're so scrutinized by social media and by other people and judged, that it's not wrong to say, I want to achieve this. It's not wrong to say that this is what I want to achieve. And I'm, you know, and I respect people who do say that. It might not be right for me. It might not be right. What I say is not right for other people, but it's not wrong. And I think this is where we have to, the world is a, you know, peculiar place at the moment, but this element of everyone judging each other
instantly
is something we really, really have to stop. You know, it's like, people have to understand, if someone says something and it's different to what you perceive as, you know, being right, you might not be right.
Yeah.
Either. So have a chat, you know, see if you can understand from each other where each other are coming from. Don't shout at each other. Don't start being aggressive to each other. Have a chat. You know, it's even down to that point, you know, and that's the element to it. And being with Ambassador Whole Man Academy, going back to that, is people are talking less. You know, they're communicating less. Just getting very angry with each other, it seems, which is solving nothing at the end of the day. But
I think a great example of that, I mean, we're recording this a week before it goes out, but I've never seen, I wrote on the Whole Man Academy e-letter that this is probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. I said, look, with the upcoming election, you're going to see people divide on whether they would vote red or blue. And I said, the point is, it doesn't really matter, but you know, if that's one of your friends, don't act like a dick over it. And I've had, you know, 1 or 2 friends I've seen have lost their shit completely because they found out, you know, one of their friends votes for the other side. And I'm like, calm down a bit. You know, it's all a pantomime. Well, you mentioned about cars. Where did your love of cars come from? Because I know I think when you were still having the Jaguar XK120 restored when we first met at the Geese and Hawks event. Where did that come from? Was it because of your dad or just your interest?
No, it didn't come from anywhere. My family, none of them are car enthusiasts, anything whatsoever. Hence probably why I WhatsApp you a lot and talk about cars, but I know how to talk about.
I should give you my dad's number. He'd WhatsApp me even more than me about cars.
happy to.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I always sort of say, I've always, you know, sort of said that fashion pays for the passion, and the passion is cars. It's something that is naturally instilled into me. It's not instilled. It was just there from a little boy. I didn't really have a mountain bike or a bike. I had my pedal go-kart with the important little handbrake to do handbrake turns. And that's where I'd spend my time. And I always had a car magazine, and I would play with cars. My dad is not interested. I always say, if I turned up to my dad's house in a yellow Lamborghini and he saw me pull up and would say hello, he wouldn't comment on the car.
Yeah.
If the next day that car was swapped for a 1985 Vauxhall Nova and I left, he would not know that I had left in that car. He would not know any difference. He would be like, he wouldn't think, are you in a different color?
Was it a different color? Yeah,
not have a clue. It's not important to him, cars. That's sort of one thing. He appreciates a good car, but he could drive anything. It wouldn't matter to him. Which is a nice lesson to, you know, it's just something to him that doesn't You know, he's like, Dad, no. Actually, he appreciates it, and he appreciates them more now that historic values of his classic cars, and he saw, you know, I made a bit of money on them. Then it's more interesting as a businessman. Like,
I was going to say,
this is a great model.
Yeah.
And started talking about businesses and garages and everything else. That's more interesting to him. But
they are big business now, aren't they? The cars and the, you know, appreciating value if you've got the right one. Obviously we're, as you knew when you lived one village away from me up to a while ago, but having, you know, George Bamford up the road with his collection of cars, and you see that the value of them is as you know, is eye watering, which always makes me wonder whether would you be scared to, I know these things have got to be used. I know you were at Goodwood the other week driving with all the different Jaguars, which looked great, but did a little bit of you think, I'll just take it a little bit easier because I'm in this beautiful, highly crafted machine?
Sadly, yes. And I say sadly because I'm getting older and I think I'm getting less kamikaze, where before that wouldn't have worried me and I would have. But yes, I in my head, you know, weighed up the options of finishing my XK120. It was a damp track at Goodwood. I hadn't really driven the car in anger on a track. Yes, it all weighed into my head, and I mean, we were doing about 108 down the back straight in that car, to be honest, which isn't, and then fully on the brakes. And of course, the other guys in the I-Paces and the Formula E cars, there's a different level.
Yeah,
but there's a lot of technology and, you know, stability control going in that. In the classics, it's man machine. You know, there's
Gandy's foot, and that's it.
There's and a big steering wheel and no power steering and no traction and no anything. There's just a lot of twitchy bum times when things start to go loose a little bit. So yes, there was an element to it. Yeah, I mean, you're right. Into your classic cars, I mean, the sad thing is you've kind of seen, because they are such an asset, that people who aren't interested in cars have bought cars, and people don't get to see them anymore. They're in a garage.
Lock them away. Yeah.
Not driven by them. Nothing. I mean, I sold my 190 SL, my Mercedes. I fully restored. That was my first ever restoration. I sold that just before lockdown, and because I wasn't driving it, you know, again. So then I realised I loved the projects, but I didn't have time to then really drive the cars.
Yeah.
So I had to change that. So I sold the 190 to a guy who was going to love it and look after it, and his family were going to enjoy it much more than I actually was. It should be enjoyed. I believe my classic cars should be enjoyed by everyone. That's why I restore them. And then the XK with it's been on sort of demonstrations, and it's been at Hampton Court, and it's double Jaguar Classics for everyone to see. I don't have that personally. That's up at Jaguar.
Yeah.
So people can go and see it. We raced it around Goodwood. And I've changed that platform for everyone to enjoy that car more than just it being sat there as a beautiful asset somewhere. And I'm just finishing another project at the moment, which
is that the Porsche?
The Porsche 356, yeah, which is it's finished actually, but we're shooting it. It's being prepped for its first sort of outing and shoot. Was supposed to be this week actually, but now that's obviously been delayed, so it's second week in December.
What about? Because I know I saw pictures of the Porsche, and it's lovely, and that's probably if my dad was allowed to ask you some questions about that, he'd have been like, "What's the XK120 like to drive?" and then the Porsche. But what was your first ever car?
My first car was it was a 10-year-old at the time, 1988 Ford Fiesta 1.1 Ghia, with aftermarket electric windows.
Baller, absolute baller.
My pride and joy. Baller, mate. There was 1.1, 4 gears, 4 presets in the radio station. Didn't care. My first foray into driving, and loved that car.
Yeah.
It was a pool car in one of my dad's companies that was just sat there and wasn't really being driven. Was being driven by the guys to, you know, at the bottom, and that's what me and my sister had. My dad at the time, you know, I sort of said, you know, is there any chance of getting anything better? And he said, David, you know, the stats of you having your first accident or crash in the first year is quite high. I don't want you driving anything particularly very fast. That, you know, and that's
going to kill you.
That you could, yeah, if you have a crash at 30 miles an hour, it's a lot better than having a crash at 70 miles an hour kind of thing in a very fast car. Ironically, I then did get I got a Peugeot 106 exercise, so I didn't crash that or have any accidents in it whatsoever in the Fiesta. I then got the more powerful car and crashed it within about the first 2 months.
It sounds like a familiar story.
Unfortunately, my father was right, which is annoying, but he was right, and it taught me, you learn the hard way, and that's part of life and part of business is learning. I've always said, not everything has gone right, not everything in business has gone right, but you learn so much more from mistakes.
Yeah,
So
totally.
much more.
Yeah.
And they're hard to take on the chin sometimes, but actually you're better off for it, and you come back if you can get up off it and keep on continuing. And everyone sort of, I talk about you talk about successes as I always do, but I've invested in businesses and they've done mediocre, or we've shut them down, or they've failed for certain elements, and that's because of certain people that have been brought in to run the company, or the way that's been structured, and that's how you've learned. People, not everything has gone right, believe me. And not everything went right in the beginning of modeling. If I said to people, I think people presume that I started modeling on a Monday, and Tuesday I was shooting Dolce & Gabbana.
Yeah.
In actually what happened is I started shooting when I was 21. I started in the industry in 21. It wasn't until 5 years later, or nearly 5.5 years later, that I shot Dolce & Gabbana Light Blue. I had 5 years of doing okay, and in that time we restructured so many times, and there were times I wanted to quit, but and it wasn't until Tandy Anderson, who is the owner of Select Model Agency, who I'm with, and she took me aside and said, what do you want to achieve here? Because I was being a little bit petulant, and I was saying, I don't want to go. I know that's great money, but it's not. I want to achieve something here. I want to leave a legacy. I want to leave something. And that may sound really big-headed, but I was just like, that's fine. And she was like, okay. And at the time she said, right, so all these jobs, and I was earning decent money, very, very, very good money, doing boring commercial catalog work, which pays very well. She said, you have to not do any of that anymore, because that's, you're perceived as a catalog commercial model. If you want to be perceived as this, you have to start again. And for so long, I literally was not earning anything. And if I told people what we were actually making from that, they would say, you're absolutely mad. But in my mindset, I wasn't losing anything, because I was never going to continue on that route. So, and I had a lot to, I didn't have anything to lose at the end of the day. And that's something I've learned in life as well. And it's chances I would have taken when I was younger, because I didn't have anything to lose. Now I have a lot more to lose, and I have a family, and there's more responsibilities. So I cannot say to people, go and take that chance, go and, it's easier said than done.
Yeah.
But going back to what we were saying before, if it's sometimes the achievement, it's the setting the goalpost and constantly that achievement, it's so much more satisfying sometimes than actually what you get at the end of it.
I think that's
something I've learned anyway.
As you said there, it's a bit like sometimes people are recommended, if you don't like your job or something, then just tell them to shove it and quit and go and follow your passion. And I'm like, sometimes you forget that following your passion is all very well, but unless if you've got kids to feed and mortgages and etc., meditating doesn't pay the mortgage. Therefore, you need to be a man with a plan, which is a bit like, as we said, often having taking time to say, a bit like you said with the lady from Select, you say, what do you actually want? Because most people don't know. They say, well, let me come back to you on that. So we always try and put thought-provoking content out for the Whole Man Academy, and a lot of it is based around what do you actually want in life? Like, who are you as a man? Because a lot of people go, well, I'm a dad. You go, no, okay, but what else? And often people not many of us have the full answer on that one.
And also, there's a point of view of if you, for example, when you're saying working in the city and you're up at 5:30 in the morning and knowing the city boys, you were probably having to go out late at night and then having a few hours sleep and continue with that.
Yeah.
Now I may be being presumptuous here, but I probably get that you're a much nicer person now than you were at that time. As in, if you were going home to your family in that mindset, I've been in certain elements, you're not the greatest person with your family. You're short, you're with them, you're a little bit angry with yourself, you're not enjoying life.
Yeah.
Now there's all the elements of yes, you have to take that other side of it as well, of yes, I'm not going to make as much money, yes, hopefully we will achieve where I want to be, but actually I'm going to be around my children, and I'm actually in such a better mindset that you're better, you're better around your family and friends than you were holding on to something that you're just not enjoying. Now,
Yeah.
there's always elements. I don't enjoy elements of my, elements of my job, and they have to be done. Unfortunately, that's just life. There's certain times, right? But if you have other things on the go and you want to, and you've got other things to look forward to, then you have to be always. There's always a little bit of boredom in life, and that's talking about changing life the other day, and someone jokingly said to me in an interview, and I was in yesterday, and they said, where are you? Where do you want to, be in 5 years? And I never tell people really where I want to be. But something I realized recently is I haven't had so much time to drive and be with, in the cars, and with lockdown, we were supposed to do the Millet and do all these different things. And then I realized actually how happy I am, in the car community with other car nuts, other car enthusiasts, and being around cars and building cars. And something that I've always been very aware of is that the modeling side and what we achieve, say for light blue, people always say, oh, you and light blue. Now, I never really take anything from light blue, because it wasn't my campaign. I would say it wasn't my campaign. I was the guy that was fortunate enough to be in that campaign and had the right face, and was cast for it. But that was down to the brilliance of Dolce & Gabbana and Mario Testino. And now we have done other stuff, and I've built my brands with M&S, and I feel very proud that we had a very successful sort of loungewear, and there's other things that we've achieved, because I felt I built something, I created something. Where I felt modeling was very empty, where you were just going from shoot to shoot, and yes, you were seeing campaigns, but what was I building? I love to build something, and that's where I suppose with the classic cars, you felt like you've kept something on the road for hopefully the next 60 years for other people to enjoy, and people get so much pleasure out of it. And then I kind of realized the other day that I just want to build cars. I just want to, that's so
ticks the boxes.
I never normally say where I want to be in life, but I suppose in my head, I thought, this is where I'm happiest. And Steph said to me, she was like, oh, you didn't sleep last night? I said, no, because I'm so excited about going off to Goodwood, like a little fucking kid. But I'm just where some of those I'm like, oh, okay, what have I got on today, or where am I today? What am I doing? Where I was really excited about that. Now, of course, with any job, in anything you do, there's always going to be something that the excitement is taken away when you get to do, that monotony of something all the time. That's just life. But I kind of realized that yes, I have to change to incorporate more of this, and I've already put some feelers out to where I want, what we want to do, and I know other people from the other guys who are thinking around the same mindset, and thought, well, wouldn't it be great if we could build cars for people? And that passion has then turned into something that, yes, hopefully might pay a little bit, a few of the bills. But could I turn this into something that, instead of it being a passion, that I could get all the guys that I talk to now about cars, who I know are experts, because I'm certainly not an expert in building cars. Could we put something together where we are achieving that, and we are all working together? And I thought, doesn't that sound nice? So it may happen, it may not. But just the thought of it, the excitement of starting to talk video and planting a few seeds to see if we can make something happen, is the exciting side again. So
that is where you can see even your physiology changes when you talk. For all of us, if you're, I would say with the Whole Man Academy, I work long hours doing it, but I don't consider it particularly work, because writing e-letters, doing podcasts, speaking to interesting people, and etc. is what keeps me getting up early and staying up late to do this stuff. So I always think that's priceless. If you can, to be honest, if you can bring the magical things, if you can make money, and it's not always about money, but if you can make it more sustainable by having something you love doing and you want to talk about all the time, and it can bring a profit and pay the bills, or at least wash its face, then you're like, jackpot.
Yes. Yeah, that's where you want to be. It may not happen then for 10 years or 5 years, but again, it's something that's seeded, it's something that's a goal that you have to. But I mean, going back to mental health, I mentioned to you last week, talking to the head teachers at schools, we deal with pretty most of the time grown men and adults, and of course with mentoring and talking and getting people to talk and everything else. But actually, speaking to the head teacher at the school I sponsor, she was saying that they are now seeing year 6, which I believe is 10-year-olds, that were being affected with social media, like being on social media so much and gaming, and they were very much going within themselves and not talking. And then during lockdown, not being around their peers, and they came into school as completely different people. And going, as I said, you're talking to adults, but this now needs to be, I'm going back to the core. I wish the core of one of the problems wasn't a 10-year-old boy, but when a head teacher says it's for some reason we don't quite know yet why that is being affected so much, but social media has something to do with it, clearly, because everyone is now so relied on social media and their phones and everything else. So that's something that we can talk about for Whole Man Academy as well. But that's the scary side of where we are at the moment. And I've just done something with which hopefully would have been released before this goes out. We've worked on, I publicly said about this, about kids being on phones and being so reliable on phones, and parents not quite knowing what their children are looking at on phones, what they're sort of being exposed to. And Vodafone approached me about this and said, we've actually developed a smartwatch for children that is socially connected to only a certain amount of people, and that being your parents, and that being your grandparents and the nanny, or a couple of not even friends, but it's never connected to the internet. So you are constantly connected to the people that children actually need to be connected to for safety. And of course it has a step meter on there, and it has your fitness, and it's in line with Disney. And I love the idea. It's something I would never do, but to me, that was a great solution to a problem where parents say, yes, but we want our kids to have a phone because of safety. Well, now you can have a smartwatch, and they can talk to you, and they can take pictures, and they can send it to you. You're in constant contact with your child. It's even got a tracker on there, so you know where your children are.
Track and trace.
Such a brilliant track and trace. I think Steph's going to get one from me, to be honest. And but it was a good solution to a problem I see is already a problem, but it's going to go and get worse. And that's very much where I don't mind problems. I like solutions to problems. And I thought that was great.
Doesn't that come also from being a dad? And for both of us, I would say we're young dads. We're not young dads, but we've only become dads in the last kind of year, or for me 3 years. But you look at the way technology's changed and how kids are connected to everything. And I agree. There's always that worry for, you want to know. Thankfully ours aren't big enough to be going out on their own yet, but you want to know where they are, but the dangers of them being able to access some quite horrific things with a few taps of a keyboard. I think that's another one of those quite useful ideas. As you said, Emma will probably be telling me that I've got to get one for Christmas as well. So
I mean, my element, and again going back to the core of what is with social media, we're talking about children being objectified to certain elements of it. They're seeing stuff, they're being bullied, they're talking to each other. It's supposed to be you're connected more than ever, but actually it means just the stories I've heard of this is a mad one, that the Childline were telling me that children now, they have their social media profile, and then they start another social media profile to troll themselves. And with trolling yourself, you then get sympathy from other people, so you get more engagement.
Wow.
Now that, to me, I didn't even know that was a thing. To be honest, I didn't know it was a thing. I didn't even know. I can't quite compute how that works in my head, but obviously to a child and to a teenager, that's what they've seen from.
Generates attention.
From very famous people tweeting and social media, and all their fans standing up for them, and they try and imitate it. I suppose that might be one element to it. And it's the problem is with everything, and we were talking about you are so judged on what you say now, and there's a lot of brave people on their keyboards, a lot of brave people on there, you know, with comments.
Yeah, the keyboard warriors.
Keyboard warriors. Now, my element to it is that as someone in the public eye, all my social sites are verified so that people know that it is my site, it is me, it's officially my, you know, my profiles. But why do we not make sure that everyone's profile on social media and everyone's digital profile is verified?
Yeah.
So that you are the person. Now, I've worked with Instagram on this, about 50 fake accounts that pretend to be David Gandy. Now, we've worked on the last 2 years of getting these deleted, and they are deleted. The next day, there's another one started. And and these social sites, they approach women, they approach young girls, they approach people for money, saying they're for my charities, and people give them money, they talk to them. That's probably why my personal view, I have a little bit of an insight where some people don't actually about what happens. Unfortunately, people fall for it.
Yeah.
And it's quite scary. There's a little insight into me that there are these very strange, horrible people out there, and they prey on the vulnerable.
Yeah.
That wouldn't happen if they were verified, because they couldn't start accounts. Now, everyone commenting on newspapers and other people's. Now, if you were verified, and you had to actually you had to take responsibility for actually what you were saying to people.
God.
Imagine a lot of it would stop.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of it wouldn't all stop, of course.
Yeah.
But I don't think people would be as brave if the police officer could see exactly that person that was being, footballers being racially abused online, which apparently is increasing. How it's increasing, I have no idea. But again, a lot of brave people on there. Imagine if they could go to that person and they had that person's profile and address and
all their basic details
they could do. And social media has become so prevalent and so powerful now. And you could say we're still in our infancy of actually how we're using it.
Yeah.
That everyone needs to be accountable
for what they're saying and
what they are saying and what they are doing, because a lot of the time it is illegal. And there's pretty much speaking to Instagram and working with them and speaking to the police officers. There's not much they can really do half the time, because people can just delete their profile. They're completely they don't exist basically. And I think if you change that, that's just one thing, and I know how that would go about, but I just think people, if you said to someone, you can walk out on the street now completely disguised as someone else and go and abuse anyone you want to. One, people would go, well, I'm not going to do that because that guy's going to smack me in the face, or that guy.
There's consequences.
That person's going to call the police. But imagine if you could say you could do that, but no one's going to do anything.
Yeah.
And then the next day, and the consequence is you can just delete that, and you can go out the next day as a brand new person. Does that sound like madness to anyone else? And you're not accountable for anything. And
it reminds me of with like Premier League footballers, that I just don't get it, that people feel it's okay to go and shout abuse at them. And I know it's passion and it's this and it's that, but I would say if the guy that had that went to his job on Monday, walked into the office and someone was shouting he's a wanker in his face whilst he's trying to work, you'd say, mate, that's unacceptable. So I never get it. And like you say, it's the football side of it. You don't get that at many other sports. But on social media, I mean, I think one of the first things me and you spoke about was, you get a couple, you'll get hundreds and hundreds of positive comments, and you'll get 3 stupid comments. But how have you found it? Because obviously, when you put up an Instagram post, you're going to get 50,000 likes and 20,000 comments or something. Do you find yourself reading all the comments? Because I know you reply to some of them. What's it like?
I do try. I think if you're going to have a profile, I mean, I've got over a few sort of million people on Instagram and stuff, and you do get thousands of comments, and I can't read them all. What we've always done, and I have people that can read them as well, but they never reply to them. They make me aware of anything that's been negative that's been said, and I will reply to people and warn people or thank people or anything else. And there's so much kind of, from a business point of view, unfortunately now it can't not be done because so many brands, so many people are speaking to you through social media. So we are relying on it more and more. As you say, 99% of it is positive. There's a couple percent sometimes that are odd. We virtually have zero tolerance with them. We've learned that you can say to that person, please try and be positive on anything that you say. You don't mind if you say, oh, I don't like that picture, Dave. I think you were better in this campaign. It's not that's their opinion. That's not a negative comment. Good. I'd probably actually agree. If I don't agree, then that's your opinion. Good for you. It's when the ludicrousness of comments start, and we put and this isn't because I'm actually really affected by these comments. It doesn't really affect me that much. However, they affect other people that are reading them. Yeah. And before you know it, you have then got, and you see it, bubbling sometimes on social, where people go and defend me or they think they're defending me. Those then people revert back. Then more people. So where one comment where people, they think, well, that could affect me, and it didn't really. You can just delete it. Actually, people taking offense, and then you've got 40 people in an argument with each other that really didn't want to. That really didn't need to be an argument. That really didn't need to defend me, although it's nice that they do, and that's where it starts. Yeah. So instead of, you've got this, what we try and do, everything on my social is trying to be positive. Is just positive energy. Sounds all a bit hippie wanky, but it's, let's all be positive on here, okay? Yeah. I never post anything that's really negative. I hope that people look at my Instagram and they think it's it's fun, it's positive. I don't put any personal life on there. That's not me. There's a business element, but it's, everything on there is a bit tongue in cheek for me, really, at the end of the day. And I try to always make something quite amusing and funny. And what you don't want is those suddenly people reading it and going, oh, you looked at that account and actually I've got really angry and continue. So we try and put a stop to that immediately. We, first of all, we're just messaging people to say, listen, can you, please be careful on here, because we don't accept it. But we honestly, we understand people have a bad day. Yeah. I've probably, I don't comment, but I've thought things or commented on something, I thought, that was a bit stupid. You should really think about it. But sometimes you actually understand those people, they'll just continue. It never really stops. And the only thing you can really do is you can
just block them or something.
Yeah, you block the worst, and then some people that you just have to, so they can't see everything, they can't see comments, they can only see pictures. And
I always feel sorry for those people, and I mean sorry in a way of like, you're like, what kind of pain are they in to be feeling that their only thing is to go on and put silly comments and trolling people and stuff like that. So I, obviously with the Whole Man Academy, thankfully we very rarely do, but once or twice I've had stupid messages where I'm just like, I'll give them one chance, maybe they, as you said, maybe they've had a bad day or I've misunderstood what they've said. But, once they've stepped over the mark, you're like, okay, that's it. We don't need, we don't need that in our lives.
But there's a logical mindset. And the younger people I don't really understand it. Now, I was giving the example of setting up another profile to troll your other profile. I don't really even understand how that works, if I'm totally honest. But there's teenagers and that I think we have to look into more of the way they perceive they are using social media and how they interact in it, because it's not almost the same as we do.
Yeah.
Another example is that I got a personal message and someone flagged up, one of my team flagged up and said, oh, you might want to look at this, it's a bit strange. It was an absolutely insult message. It was just like, you big-nosed, blah, 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 blah. It went on and on and on and on. And I do have a big nose, that's fair, that's a fair comment. But it was but in it, he said, you French, blah, 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 blah. So I read the whole message, all the insults, and thought, you know what? And I looked, and I was, for some reason, I was intrigued. I just didn't understand it, because it's very rare you get something that bad.
Yeah.
So I looked on his profile, and it was a public profile, and I looked at it, and it was a young lad. I'm probably thinking late teens. And I was like, why? Just, I mean, why? I'm intrigued. It's like, why? And so I messaged him and just said, listen, I'll take everything, but don't call me French. I mean, that's the biggest insult in the world. Now, I'm not insulting French people. It was a joke too.
Yeah.
I was intrigued by this guy, and it was the only way I could think of interacting with him. And he came back and he said, oh God, you've responded. Is this you? And I said, yes, it is me. Can I ask why the message?
Yeah.
He didn't really respond. And I looked on his profile and I saw he was a Spurs fan. I'm a Spurs fan. So I said to him, oh, you're a Spurs fan, by the way. Like, didn't expect this from another Spurs fan. That's terrible. He went, oh my God, you support Tottenham? I said, yeah, I support Tottenham. We spoke to Spurs for half an hour. You know, everything, Mourinho, Pochettino, everything. Had a chat about it. And he said, and I said, fine, like, listen, my friend, I just out of interest, what was the message about? And he said, I don't know. He said, I you know, it was, you're one of my, you know, I look up to you so much, and I respect you so much. But there was this website where that I follow, and they, you know, we put people on there of kind of people respect, but we insult them, and that's what we do. And I said, you do this for everyone? He said, yeah, we go after everyone. And I was like, okay, wow. I said, that's, you said, but like you now talking to me about Spurs and you taking your time to talk to me. And I said, yeah, mate, have a think about that, of what you're doing. Just, you know, and he said, yeah, absolutely. He said, thanks so much. And you're a really good guy.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that's fine. So just think about, I said to him, would you like someone if they said that to you, all those different things? He said, no, of course. And I said, well, you have to realize that everyone's a person. Yeah. I don't take offense to it. I'm thick-skinned. I've been in the business for 20 years, you know, but it was still odd. Other people aren't. And you're going to affect people a lot by, some people are very insecure. Yeah. And he said, yeah, okay, good. And now and again, he messages and I see him flare up my Q&A. He goes, oh, did you see the goal by Harry Kane? I did. What a legend. Hope all's well. Good. And that, I had to have that. I had to understand that. Because it was, and I still don't quite understand it, if I'm totally honest. But
to bother to take the time, I think is great. To actually, I know you can't do it to everybody, just to reach out and actually then realize you're a real person.
Yeah.
And it's not just some text and send it off and it doesn't matter. It's like, hey, you know, you could have been offended by it. I mean, you're thick-skinned, and you know, you and I are not kids anymore, so we just laugh at stuff like that. But you know, you don't know how it can affect other people. It's bonkers.
Yeah, I know lots of adults that would have been affected by it. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, this is not something that just affects children. Like, there are people in the public eye that would have really affected, and they would have taken that to heart. And unfortunately, we've also seen people take their own lives that have been in the public eye, and that has been a lot of to do with people and comments and social media harassment and everything else. Again, let's verify a few people and see if that carries on.
See if they're so brave. Well, look, I know I've kept you for a long time already, but one last question before I let you go is, what's your thoughts on Mourinho and the job he's doing at Spurs? Because I'll say this first. My father-in-law is a lifelong Spurs fan. He's been going to Spurs since he was a pretty small kid, and used to go every week until it got stopped for a while. But he was like, you know what? Not many of the supporters particularly wanted him to go there, and he's like, part of him is if Mourinho wins, it's kind of painful because he said I didn't really want him there, but obviously if he wins, it'll be nice. So I'm always interested to know for Spurs fans, what's it like?
I mean, when I say I'm definitely more a rugby cricket person. I follow football. I still haven't been to the new stadium, Spurs. So it's not a huge passion of mine. You know what? I think Spurs need to get out of that way of, we've always had players and managers that we really like and we're really fond of. Harry Redknapp and Pochettino. I'm not saying they're the nicest guys in the world, but they suited Spurs and they suited the way they're playing, but they never really won anything with them.
Yeah.
Mourinho, whether you like him or not, is a winner. And what else are you, really, to my point of view, what are you partaking in sport for if you're not good, if you're not trying to actually win something?
Especially professional sport.
Exactly. So, yes, are we going to be I suppose but we are playing a game of, a football, a style of football. We beat Manchester United, was it 4-1 a few weeks ago? So we're not scoring goals, but it is going to be with Mourinho, the 1-0s and stuff like that, which Spurs are a side that we're letting 3, but we'll score 4.
Yeah.
You're never really going to win anything with that. And Mourinho, I have to say, I think I lost a little bit of respect to him over the last few years. I think he was saying some strange things. Seems to be picking on players publicly. I didn't respect that. And I think he's reined that in a little bit. I mean, he would be a great person to talk to on the Whole Man Academy, to see.
He's on my list.
From Manchester United to this, and see how his mindset works. But actually, I think I've seen a different side and to Mourinho, and I quite like what I see at the moment. And we're joint second or joint first or second in the league at the moment, so we'll see how that continues. But yes, it does. Even he's come out and said to Tottenham players, "You're too nice. Yeah, yes. You're too nice. You're nice guys."
Nice guys don't win anything.
No, actually, there's nothing wrong with being nice. There is really, really nothing wrong. But I hate being called nice as well. I don't think I'm. I hopefully, at first I would say you're a kind guy. I'm not always a nice guy. I realise that, and I think you have to realise that nice guys are always a bit. My English teacher always said, never use nice as a descriptive word ever for anything. It's such a beige word. And I think the mentality to have to be a winner.
Yeah.
Be instilled into Tottenham. I think Mourinho is probably that guy, even though it's not going to be the style of football that
some might like.
Spurs are looking for.
One of the programs.
It's a very strange season, of course, as well. So again, if Spurs are going to do something with this season where it's where you haven't got the Liverpools and Liverpool are doing very well, but Liverpool and Manchester that have already run away with it. They're already 8 points ahead, 10 points ahead. There's been some oddities. So this could be the season that Spurs, are sort of finally. I say that. I mean, I'm used to being a Spurs supporter. It's never going to happen.
No, we won't put any money on them just yet. Well, I'll finish by saying we've done well, because we've talked about football, we've talked about business, we've talked about cars, we've talked about the modelling side of it, entrepreneurship, charities, etc. And believe it or not, after this, I've got to go and feed the chickens. So I'm living a life of a rock star.
Living the dream. I've got to go off to Waitrose and do some shopping. I mean, living the superstar lifestyle as usual.
It's all happening. Well, I'll firstly say thank you for joining us, especially as this goes out on International Men's Day. So it's perfectly timed, and also for being our ambassador, because hopefully we can do some great things in the future.
Thank you for asking me, you and Robin, for asking me. It's an honour and a privilege, sir. And I hope people have a smile and a laugh with with our mumblings for the last couple of years.
We always say, if we can, every interaction with the Whole Man Academy should leave guys feeling that it was fun and upbeat, if that makes sense. So hopefully, with our comedy duo here, we've managed it.
Exactly. Same time next week.
Same time next week. On that bombshell, I will let you go off to Waitrose, and we will catch you soon.
All right, Anson. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, David. Cheers.
Bye.